All right, let's jump right into a really fascinating paper from 1995. It proposes a pretty radical solution to one of the oldest questions in philosophy, the mind-body problem. And you know what? It connects chaos theory, phantom limbs, and even the future of AI. It's a wild ride.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to build this argument piece by piece. We'll start with the core problem, then dive into the theory, and end up with some pretty mind-bending ideas about the future.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about the central mystery itself. This is the question that has kept thinkers up at night for centuries, and it's the whole reason this theory even exists.
And here it is. This is the classic mind-body problem. You've got this 3-pound lump of, well, wet, physical stuff in your head, your brain. But somehow, that produces the non-physical, intangible world of your thoughts, your feelings, your entire awareness. How does the physical stuff create the non-physical experience? That's the puzzle we're trying to solve.
Now, to tackle this huge question, the author says we need to look at the universe's basic operating system. And the key, according to this paper, is chaos theory.
So, chaos isn't just messy randomness. It's a system with a really deep, hidden order. You've probably heard of the butterfly effect, right? That's sensitivity to initial conditions. But for what we're talking about, the two ideas to really hang on to are self-similarity and self-referentiality. It just means patterns repeat themselves at different sizes, and new forms are built from older versions of themselves. Remember that idea, form building on top of form. It's absolutely central to this whole thing.
Okay, so the paper builds its case on this philosophy it calls neurological positivism. What does that mean? Well, the big idea is that everything we can possibly know, I mean everything, from the laws of physics to why we like a certain painting, it all comes from the computational rules hardwired into our brains by evolution. Our brain's code is basically the source code for our reality.
So, we've got chaos theory as our toolkit and our brain's algorithms as the source code. Let's see how the paper uses these to build the first major piece of the puzzle, consciousness itself.
The argument goes like this. Consciousness wasn't some magical accident. It was forged in the fire of survival. Think about it. For millions of years, this life-or-death dance between predator and prey played out, over and over. The animals that got really good at calculating space, time, and velocity, the ones with the best internal GPS, you could say, they're the ones that survived. And over countless generations, those winning strategies, those algorithms for navigating the world, got physically hardwired into the brain.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. How do we even know the brain has this built-in map? The paper points to the phantom limb phenomenon. You know, people who lose an arm or a leg often still feel it, sometimes vividly. But even crazier, people who are born without a limb can sometimes feel a phantom. That suggests the brain isn't just reacting to a body, it's generating the experience of a body from a pre-existing template.
And this is the crucial takeaway. Our feeling of having a body, of being right here, right now, isn't just a passive feed of sensory data. No, it's an active, ongoing simulation that's generated by the brain itself. The outside world just edits the movie that's already playing in our head.
And that brings us to the paper's definition of consciousness. So, what is it? It's the constant, humming activity of this internal body map, this neuromatrix. It's the brain's non-stop simulation of a complete whole body in space and time. This creates a stable sense of me, a baseline that the brain uses to make sense of all the chaotic information flooding in from the outside world.
Okay, so if consciousness is the brain's private movie of the body, what happens when those internal processes go public? Well, that brings us to the next layer in this whole thing, the mind.
So according to this theory, the mind is a step up from consciousness. Think of it like this. If consciousness is the internal operating system, the mind is the set of apps we've built to run on it. And what are these apps? Things like language, math, art, science, they're all mental tools that let us take the private internal code of our brain and actually share it with other people.
And here's the kicker. This process is autocatalytic. It feeds on itself. It snowballs. The act of creating and sharing a mental model, like developing a language, makes our brains better at creating even more complex models, like writing poetry or philosophy in that language. It's a powerful feedback loop, and it's what drives all of cultural and intellectual evolution.
This quote just nails the core idea. Think about it. A fish's fin is a diagram of the forces of water that shaped it. In the same way, our brain structure is a diagram of all the evolutionary forces that shaped it. And the mental models we create, our mind, are just an extension, a continuation of that very same diagram. All right,
We have all the pieces on the board. We've got consciousness, we've got mind. Let's put them together and see the paper's big solution to the mind-body problem.
So here's the resolution. It's not that the brain causes the mind or the mind causes the brain. It's that they are two different views of the exact same underlying information. The best analogy is a hologram. You can look at it from one angle and see one image, look from another angle and see a different image, but they both come from the same single, deeper source.
So let's break that down. The experience of having a physical body in a world that feels out there, that's the brain projecting its internal body map outwards. But the experience of having a mind full of thoughts that feel in there, that's the world of shared ideas, of culture, being projected inwards. One feels external, the other feels internal, but they both come from the exact same place, the fundamental algorithmic structure of the brain. Okay, so if our minds are basically built to externalize their own patterns, to build themselves into the world, where does that road lead? The paper wraps up by looking to the future of thinking itself.
Now remember, this was written in 1995. The paper cited this predicted evolution of AI and robotics, and it presented it as the totally natural, maybe even inevitable, next step in what humans have always done, taking the patterns inside our heads and building them out in the world, from language to cities to computers and finally to AI.
And this is the really big point. Technology isn't something separate from us, something alien. It's the most natural thing we could do. It's the cultural unfolding of our own brain's architecture. The same chaotic, self-referential patterns that built our consciousness over millions of years are now being built again, but this time in silicon.
And this leaves us with a final, really provocative question. This whole story started with the brain building an internal map of the outside world. It now seems to be ending with us building an external map of our internal world. So what happens when that map becomes as detailed, as complex as the territory it's describing? What happens when our technology becomes a perfect mirror of our own consciousness? That's the question this paper from 1995 leaves us wrestling with today.